After thousands of years ruling over a vast territory in Essos, the Valyrian freehold suffered a terrible disaster in 114 BC, likely resulting from the eruption of the 14 Flames, the chain of volcanoes where they first discovered the dragons which made them so successful in battle. Yet while the doom of Valyria destroyed their cities and government, some few dragon lords survived, fortunate to be away from their homeland at the time. Among these survivors were the Targaryens of Dragonstone, a minor noble family who left the Valyrian Peninsula 12 years before the Doom, when Daenys the Dreamer, a daughter of their house, had a vision of the future, convincing her father to move them far away. As a result, the Targaryens continued on, ruling over a small island in the Narrow Sea, becoming one of the last families in all the known world to possess dragons and dragon riders. For over a century, the Targaryens remained on their island, watching as Essos descended into chaos and war, with the Dothraki plundering their way through the east, while the Free Cities battled for supremacy in the west. During this time, 4 of their 5 dragons died, leaving only Balerion the Black Dread. However, 2 new hatchlings were also born, in Vhagar and Meraxes. Things started to change, however, when young Aegon Targaryen succeeded as head of their house, at last choosing to flex their considerable might by involving themselves in the wars of nearby Essos. As the oldest and largest of the Free Cities, Volantis believed themselves to be the rightful heirs of Valyria and began expanding their territory, and so Aegon Targaryen assisted those resisting Volantene aggression by mounting his dragon Balerion and burning an enemy fleet sent against Lys. With the Volantene Wars over and the Free Cities left in relative peace, Aegon turned his attention west, preparing for the invasion of Westeros. Despite his people's history in Essos, it was the western continent which called to Aegon, even constructing an elaborately carved table with a detailed map of Westeros, more than 50 feet long and 25 feet wide. Yet while Aegon considered the entire continent one territory for him to conquer and rule, Westeros at the time was separated into 7 distinct kingdoms, with Torrhen Stark ruling over the Kingdom of the North, young Ronal Arryn ruling over the Kingdom of Mountain and Vale, with his mother Shara acting as regent, Harren Hor ruling over the Kingdom of the Isles and Rivers, Loren Lannister ruling over the Kingdom of the Rock, Mern Gardner IX ruling the Kingdom of the Reach, Argilac Durrandon ruling the Kingdom of the Storm, and elderly Maria Martell ruling as Princess of Dorne. For years, these realms competed and warred against each other, with division and rivalries creating a situation where some were eager to ally themselves to a powerful family like the Targaryens, if it meant gaining an advantage over their traditional enemies. Such was the case when the Storm King Argilac Durrandon proposed a marriage between Aegon and his daughter, offering a portion of his lands in exchange for help in battle against King Harren of the Isles and Rivers. However, Aegon rejected the proposal and instead offered the hand of his best friend and possible half-brother, Orys Baratheon, which King Argilac took as an insult. And so he cut off the hands of the envoy who delivered the message, and sent them to the Targaryens with a note that read, "These are the only hands your bastard shall have of me." With hostilities escalating, Aegon took counsel with his sister wives Rhaenys and Visenya, as well as his bannermen from House Velaryon, Celtigar, and Massey, deciding at last to begin their invasion of Westeros. Sending ravens to all the major houses of the continent, they demanded submission to House Targaryen in exchange for allowing the nobles to keep their lands and positions of authority. Though some sent counter-proposals, the terms were largely rejected by the 7 kingdoms. Aegon then gathered together an army of less than 1,600 soldiers, in addition to the dragons Balerion, Meraxes, and Vhagar, landing their host next to 3 hills at the mouth of the Blackwater Rush. Establishing the Aegonfort, their mission was off to an encouraging start, with a pair of easy victories resulting from Rhaenys securing the peaceful surrender of House Rosby, while Visenya did the same with House Stokeworth. Slowly growing the size of their army, their first true battle was against House Darklyn of Duskendale and the Mutins of Maidenpool, who joined together and raised an army of 3,000 men. Although they outnumbered the Targaryens, their soldiers were unable to withstand an onslaught of dragonfire, resulting in the death of both Lords Darklyn and Mutin, leaving their successors no choice but to surrender. With their territory quickly expanding, Rhaenys and Visenya placed a Valyrian steel circlet inlaid with rubies upon Aegon's head, crowning him as King of Westeros. Continuing on with their war of conquest, the campaign for the Vale soon began, with Daemon Valerion sailing the Targaryen fleet to take Gulltown, supported in the air by Visenya flying upon Vhagar. However, they found strong opposition from the air and fleet, bolstered by a dozen Braavosi warships, who ultimately won the battle by successfully repelling the invasion force and killing their commander, Daemon Valerion. Yet even in defeat, the Targaryen Dragon Lords were dangerous, with Visenya going on to burn the victorious enemy fleet before retreating. Even so, the invasion of the Vale was momentarily halted, though it was only the beginning of their problems, as they soon faced rebellion within their own borders, as the Isles of the Three Sisters declared independence. Meanwhile, King Aegon led his warriors to conquer the isles and rivers, marching upon King Harren of Harrenhal, whose armies were soon defeated in the Battle of the Reeds, but won a victory at the Wailing Willows, when two of Harren's sons successfully led a raid on the Targaryen camp. Yet as the victors were sailing their boats back home, Balerion the Blackdread fell upon them, killing the king's sons. Unfortunately for Harren the Black, his years of cruel leadership now caught up with him, as his bannermen refused to answer his summons, instead organizing a rebellion under Edmund Tully, who allied with the Targaryens to assist them in defeating the hated king. Believing his massive fortress to be impregnable, Harren refused to surrender despite the odds against him, and so Aegon unleashed a storm of dragon fire in the burning of Harrenhal, killing the king and his remaining sons to end their family line. To reward his allegiance to House Targaryen, Edmund Tully was named Lord Paramount of the Trident, while the Iron Islands were left in chaos for a time, as Aegon focused on conquering the rest of the mainland. South of the Aegonfort, Orys Baratheon marched upon the Kingdom of the Storm, supported in the air by Rhaenys flying atop Meraxes. With Argilac Durrandon still furious over Aegon's rejection of his daughter, no peaceful resolution was possible, and so the Storm King called his banners, gathering together a substantial force, which in turn left his realm vulnerable to attacks from pirates and Dornish raiders. Though the Stormlands won an early victory, killing 1,000 Targaryen men at Wendwater, Rhaenys set the forest on fire as the enemy departed, burning many of their warriors, including one of 3 noble lords who led the mission. Yet the true battle for the realm came during the last storm, when King Argilac, outnumbering the enemy 2-1, charged valiantly into the Targaryen ranks, eventually breaking through their center, only to find Meraxes waiting on the other end to rain dragonfire upon them. Yet even after being thrown from a horse and seeing his men killed, Argilac refused to submit, fighting and dying in a final duel against Orys Baratheon. With her father dead, Argilac's daughter Argilla retreated into Storm's End and declared herself the Storm Queen, but she was soon betrayed by her own men, who delivered her to the Targaryen camp. As the new lord of the Stormlands, Orys decided to embrace the legacy of the Durrandons by marrying Argilla and adopting their sigil as well as their words to form House Baratheon. Having started to encounter serious resistance among the realms of Westeros, Visenya was pleased to accept the peaceful surrender of Crackclaw Point, which immediately submitted to House Targaryen. In appreciation, Visenya promised that they would serve as direct vassals to the king in what came to be known as the Crown Lands. As the invasion continued, the Targaryen army prepared to face their greatest challenge yet, with King Mern Gardner IX of the Reach and Loren Lannister of the Rock allying together to raise an army of 55,000 men. Engaging at what came to be known as the Field of Fire, the Targaryen dragons devastated the enemy, burning over 4,000 men, including the King of the Reach and his sons. With another 1,000 killed in the fighting, the Westerosi army was swiftly defeated, and so King Loren surrendered to House Targaryen. Aegon then decided to leave House Lannister as the lords of the Westerlands, while House Tyrell, formerly a House of Stewards, was given the lordship of the Reach to reward them for peacefully surrendering Highgarden after the Field of Fire. Though the Targaryens wanted to continue conquering the south, they were forced to make their way north when King Torrhen Stark of Winterfell marched 30,000 men into the Riverlands. Despite being outnumbered by the Targaryen host, many Northmen wished to attack, including the king's bastard half-brother Brandon Snow, who volunteered to sneak into the enemy camp and assassinate the dragons. However, King Torrhen had heard the stories about what happened at Harrenhal and the Field of Fire, and so chose to save his people from slaughter by sending Brandon with a party of maesters to negotiate the terms of their surrender. Although he lost his crown, Torrhen was named Lord of Winterfell and Warden of the North, remembered by many as the king who knelt. One by one, the realms of Westeros were falling to House Targaryen, but in the kingdom of Mountain and Vale, the regent, Shara Aren, resolved to keep their independence, making bold plans for the defense of her son's throne by marching an army to the Bloody Gate, strengthening their defenses at Gulltown, and tripling the garrison upon the Giant's Lance, who guarded the path towards the Eyrie. Shara also sent a peace proposal, offering to marry Aegon if he would name Ronald his heir, but the offer was refused, and so she continued to prepare for an invasion. But no soldiers were sent, as Visenya could simply bypass all of their defenses by flying atop Vhagar to land directly within the inner courtyard of the Eyrie. And so it was that Shara Aren found her beloved son Ronald sitting upon Visenya's lap, eagerly wanting to fly on the dragon. Although the young king did not understand the implicit threat, the reality was made clear to Shara, who saw how vulnerable they really were to dragon lords. And so after Visenya flew the boy around the mountain 3 times, the Vale formally submitted to the Targaryens, with Ronald Arryn named Lord of the Vale and Warden of the East. Looking towards the south, Rhaenys flew atop her dragon Meraxes to the realm of Dorne, only to find their castles and towns abandoned, or else populated with only women and children. When she arrived at Sunspear, it too was abandoned, save for Maria Martell, the elderly princess of Dorne, who remained behind to warn Rhaenys that Dorne would never submit, saying, "You may burn us, my lady, but you will not bend us, break us, or make us bow. This is Dorne. You are not wanted here. Return at your peril." Following this confrontation, Dorne was left in peace for a time, until the rest of the Targaryen campaign was completed. Though most of the Reach supported their king, Mern Gardner IX, as he prepared to fight the Targaryens, the powerful and influential House Hightower of Oldtown did not join them, as the High Septon of the Faith of the Seven advised them not to fight against the Dragon Lords. When Aegon first landed on the mainland, the High Septon locked himself in the Starry Sept for 7 days and nights, until he had a vision where the crone revealed that their city would burn if they opposed the invaders. And so after the defeat of the Gardener King and submission of Highgarden, the Hightowers rode out to meet the Targaryens and surrendered Oldtown without a fight. As a result, Aegon was formally crowned King of Westeros by the High Septon in 1 AC, and the Hightowers kept their lordship of the city. With most of the mainland conquered, Aegon turned his attention to the Iron Islands, which had been in a state of civil war since the death of King Harren the Black. Putting an end to the violence, Aegon forced them to choose a new leader, resulting in the selection of Vickon Greyjoy as Lord of the Ironborn. And so with 6 of the 7 kingdoms of Westeros under Targaryen rule, the city of King's Landing was established around the Aegonfort, where they built the Iron Throne, a monstrous chair forged by blacksmiths from the melted swords of defeated enemies. However, by the end of the war, Aegon's conquest was incomplete, as Dorne remained independent. And so in 4 AC, the Targaryens launched the First Dornish War, organizing a full-scale invasion of the territory, but it ultimately ended in failure, with the death of Queen Rhaenys and her dragon, forcing Aegon the Conqueror to recognize Dornish sovereignty. Love audiobooks? Then be sure to check out Audible, where they have the world's largest collection available. Simply sign up through the link in the description box below and get 2 free audiobooks to start out. A special thanks to all those who contribute to CivilizationEx, like Kristen Greeneyes of the Company of the Cat, Q Straight Arrow Valverde, First Spear Centurion Aditya Gaturu, and Caesar the Salad. If you'd like to help CivilizationEx, click on the Patreon link, and please be sure to like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and click on the links to see more.